let's do something to advance the ball toward a political solution in Syria.
That certainly is not the tone that this has taken so far. That, as you said, it's been surprisingly sort of bellicose from both ends. They're not really even tiptoeing around the fact that both sides are feeling pretty aggressive about this. So, there's always a chance of a rapprochement, and especially with the backgrounds of Tillerson and of Trump with Putin, you would think that that's possible, but at this point, it doesn't look like it.
You would think that is possible, but if you look back in history, every time a new U.S. Secretary of State, a new administration has gone on this first trip to Moscow during the Putin years, they've had a meeting with Putin. Maybe it will happen, but there's no Putin meeting on the schedule. Right. And to your point, that's unusual anyway, but especially because these two men know each other and know each other well from the business dealing. So that's Putin. Yeah, that's Putin making a point.
I don't necessarily think it's in Putin's best interest to be friends with the U.S. right now. Right. Putin and Russia need an enemy. He is strongest when he has the U.S. as an enemy as far as mobilizing his people. So, yes, they would like sanctions lifted. They would like economic conditions improved there, but it's not necessarily in his interest to have Trump and him and Tillerson looking buddy-buddy as far as it's projected to his people.
And it'll be interesting, too, John, to hear what the White House's message is going to be, especially after Putin's pretty provocative remarks from this morning. What does Spicer say at the 1:30 briefing this afternoon? Because you've heard a sharp tone from other people in the Trump administration, Tillerson most recently, but you haven't heard as much from the White House itself, certainly not from President Trump, about Putin, about Russia's alliance with the Assad regime. To what extent do we start hearing that directly from the president and from the White House? I think will be a key question today and going forward.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting shift, and the NSC today is supposed to release a document going after Russia about, among other things, disinformation campaigns about what happened in Syria. And obviously with Tillerson not meeting with Putin, this is an interesting shift, but I think with the Trump administration, you often see shifts, but that does not necessarily follow that is doctrine or policy. Right. So that's what's interesting here. There's also, I think, the element of the story about Russia in America. They are somewhat disincentivized to have Tillerson look friendly with Putin, even if it might help in the situation in Syria.
And the Russians have already put on the record, Tillerson will meet starting tomorrow with Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, who after those meetings are done is going to meet with the foreign ministers of Syria and Iran. So the Russians have already made clear, we know who our friends are. Yes, we have to have this meeting with the United States, then we're going to move to this, which makes it interesting because the big question is, what transaction is Tillerson trying to do? What is he trying to get out of this meeting? He went into it with a very strong message saying he wants to tell the Russians, I think you're making the wrong choice. You're lined up with the wrong people, the Syrians and the Iranians. Problem is, that's a case that's been made before.
I think it's also worth thinking about. Russia has really aligned itself with the Assad regime, the Iranians, and Hezbollah. Is that a long-term alliance that serves Russia's interest?
If they're there to support the Assad regime, Russia has made a catastrophic mistake because they will be siding with Assad, with Iran, and with Hezbollah against the entire rest of the community in that part of the world.
It's not to criticize anything Secretary Tillerson said there, because that is the rational argument. You want to be with us, or you want to be with them, and the them, Hezbollah, Iran, Syria, Assad. It's a pretty long list of atrocities you can attribute to the them, but it's just further proof when you look at how close Secretary Tillerson is to Secretary Kerry. It's the same list of bad options for the Trump presidency that they face in the Obama presidency.
Yeah, I mean, this has always been an impossible situation, and that was why it was so difficult for Obama before. And this is, I think, another instance of Donald Trump, the change agent and shaker-up of Washington, running smack dab into reality and running into the complicated situations that leaders face when, his campaign and his message has been so sort of glib on these things.
And that's what, you heard a lot of Republican leaders when you asked them about Trump's relationship with Putin. Does that concern you, about his willingness to work with Putin? They've said, including Mitch McConnell, said, look, once he starts dealing with Russia, it's going to be a lot more difficult. He's going to learn what other leaders learned, like what George W. Bush learns when he said, famously, he could look into Putin's soul. This is a realization perhaps for the White House, that there are serious strategic interests that Russia has in Syria. They can't just turn on a dime and change their position that they have had for years because they're vital national security interests for their own country and which are directly at odds with where the United States stands right now.
It's a great point in the sense Mitch McConnell said this throughout. I was just watching Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina was on with Kate Baldwin in the last hour, and he was praising the president, praising him for the Tomahawk cruise missiles, praising him for the tougher tone toward Moscow, trying to push him to do some other things I'm not sure the Trump administration is prepared to do. But the praise, after, remember, during the campaign, the hawks in the Republican Party would go nuts, and I'm being polite, when then candidate Trump said things like this.